Hello, namaste everyone. Today I've got a very special issue. Today I have got Professor Dr. Kiprono Langat from Charles Sturt University, Australia. And actually I'm so much impressed by his academic background. So I requested him to, provide a little time for me for this show. And I'm very much hopeful that after watching this, so you will get some knowledge, and especially I wanted to just know something about Australian education system and the Kenyan education system, as he has got experience of teaching in secondary level, similarly school level and university levels in Kenya. Similarly, he has got experience of teaching in Australia, and briefly he has taught in Canada as well. And he has got a very sound academic background. He has completed his PhD in education, and he's the senior professor of Charles Sturt University, Australia, and he has completed his MA in international education, and he's done his bachelor's of arts in education. So I'm very much happy today, and let's start the interview. And first of all, Professor Dr. Kiprono, I would like to welcome you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm not sure about the professor side. In Australia, professor is, but I understand where you're coming from. So my name is Dr. Kiprono Langat. Kip is what I'm known for most of the time. So I'm a lecturer in Australian university called Charles Sturt, which is in New South Wales. If you are trying to know where it is, it's in the middle or halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. But we have different campuses of Charles Sturt Uni, and I'm in one in Wagga Wagga, but there are many others across New South Wales.
All right. Okay, Dr. Kip. So shall I say Dr. Kip now? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So as you've got experience of teaching in, primary level, high school, and university levels as well. So can you tell us, what are the differences of teaching in different levels, please?
Thank you. First of all, I'm a teacher trainer, but initially I trained as a secondary school teacher. And so, but I also taught in the primary school level. So in terms of my teaching experience, I've taught in the primary school, and then I've taught in high school, and then now I'm a teacher trainer at the university. So in the differences in terms of teaching at different levels really is that I guess it's where your passion is. So when I train, most of the time I enjoy teaching at the secondary school level, maybe because I've specialized there.
Oh, all right.
But I've also come to admire the primary school, the basic, I think here it's called basic education, because it is the foundation of knowledge. I mean, I always think that even when I'm now working with teachers, that if there is any way we can support our teachers, it got to be at the foundation level, the basic school level, because I believe in literacy, numeracy, and maybe a bit of general science, that if students are able or pupils are able to understand, to craft the concepts of numeracy and literacy or language and mathematics, I think we are setting them up for a good life. So teaching experience in secondary school is a bit different because you are trying to bring the knowledge they have acquired at the basic level to another level of understanding. And so this is a point whereby students are not only trying to understand the knowledge, but they're also trying to understand who they are, and they are really struggling with their identity at that level. There are many things happening, and so it's also the prime time to capture the attention of these young people, especially adolescents. So I'm in classrooms, especially at class 7, 8, 9, where there's a lot of feelings and emotions going around. So teachers at that level need to be working beyond the script, beyond the book, beyond the subject content, to know that they are working with a child who is changing, who is unsure of who he or she is, at the same time who wants to become somebody they don't know. So it is that teacher in classroom that will only awaken or make that child start to see the direction. And when you come to university, it's changing. During our time, maybe your time, university was meant to be a knowledge production place where you go in with seriously wanting to, having taught what to do. You have chosen a specific area of interest, and so it's different there. So as a teacher at those different levels, I've seen all the requirements are different, but at the end of the day, we are talking about supporting a person, an individual who wants to go to a particular direction in life.
All right. So thank you so much. And my another question is, like you've like taught in Australia, as in Kenya, and now you've got a brief experience, you can say in Nepal also.
Yeah.
So like, what differences have you observed in teaching methodologies in Australia, Kenya, and Nepal?
That's a hard question because as much as it's hard to compare, when I like comparative education, but at the same time we got to understand the context, and for each country or each educational background and settings. But by and large, it's as I said before, it's about the knowledge, it's about the child, it's about community. So in all those settings, whether in Nepal, in Australia or Canada or Kenya, it's always the aim is always about quality teaching and learning. And so if you're asking me to the differences between all those contexts, I would pretty much say in Australia, where I've trained and now teaching, we are more focused, or the system there is focused mainly on the quality teaching framework. And that quality teaching framework has a number of elements to it. It's more around the quality of teaching, the quality of learning, and the significance that learning entails. And it has several elements to it, and within all those sub-elements are just same thing. Do the student understand the content, the meta language of the area? When it comes to the learning, are the student engaged? Are the student bringing in new knowledge? In terms of significance, are the students able to connect with communities, with that knowledge to where they come from? So we are, it's more focused on developing this holistic person, and not perhaps not so much around testing, which is the case, say, in Kenya or in Nepal. So and this is where I think the danger of trying to compare, because in a place like Kenya, where I know a lot about, education is privilege, basically. It's something that it's until recently, it was only meant for the elite. But one way to change a society is through education. One way to transform self is through education. One way to change the world is through education. And so, being here now in Nepal, this is my third time coming here and observing and watching and sitting in classroom, interacting with teachers here. I think we are in a good trajectory. Teachers here are putting in all their best to try and work within a curriculum which is always there, or the opportunities to do that curriculum is the demands of a curriculum here is high stake. So maybe the only difference is in Australia is that, or say from Australian context, is that curriculum is testing is part of a holistic process, whereas I guess in Nepal or in say in Kenya, there is the monster of this testing. So because of that, good teachers try their best, but in the end, they are forced to come back to teaching to the curriculum, teaching to pass the exam, which is not a bad thing. But you see, we have to prepare students to be able to do well in an exam. And so sometimes we got caught up in trying to drill the students to do well in exam. We forget teaching for self-edification, self-understanding, self-knowledge, and then community understanding. So what I see as areas that we need to improve, especially in a country like Nepal, is to blend the two. Ability to be able to support this student, this child, to do well in the exam. At the same time, ability to develop a Nepali child, somebody who is focusing around the social, cultural, political nuances of Nepal, connected to the world, knowing what is happening around the area, the region, knowing the social, cultural factors that influence many things. I've been here, this is my second time being in Nepal when there is an election. The last time there was a bit of issues, this time it's kind of peaceful. So to me, it is a transition, a good transition. So I'm happy to be seeing something that is going gradually into a beautiful place, because similarly, where I've come from in Kenya, elections has been in previous time marred with problems, but I was there again. I was privileged to be there in the last one in August, and it was peaceful, largely or mostly peaceful. So to see this happening, I, as a teacher, as a profession, I attribute that to knowledge and understanding of broader than just curriculum, that young people are beginning to see the world differently, to see the world that if you are wishing or wanting a change, if you have a capacity or power to vote, use that as one way of change rather than violence. So opt for something other than violence. We need to be teaching students to work for peace. I guess peace is the foundation of everything, really. So where I've been, I taught in Canada while I was seconded from my university for 6 months, and again, it's a different setting. So the aim here is that when we teach, our perspective should not be only limited to the curriculum book that we do every day, but it should also, we should use that topic, that unit, that language of teaching to also ask ourselves, what does that mean for Nepal? What does that mean for a Nepali child coming from different communities? So the point here is, when we teach, we must know who the child is. In Australia, some of the qualities of teaching is that know the child and how the child learns. So teaching styles may need to shift a bit to meet the needs of a child from a diverse setting, a different background, different learning style, and more importantly, a child that is still thinking about what he or she wants to become.
All right. Okay, yes. Anyway, comparatively, Kenya is doing better. According to the World Bank, Kenya's education sector has improved quickly despite COVID-19. So among its African countries, Kenya has been a top education performer. So as you have got long experience in teaching in Kenya, so in this context, so what can Nepal emulate from Kenya?
Oh, okay. Maybe my history of Kenyan education is now a bit, because I've been out for a long time, but we attribute to the Kenya, talking about Kenya really, see, since 2002, so there's been a change in political systems, in terms of the way forward, in terms of education, the way education has been contextualized in Kenya. So Kenya now has what it's called 2030 strategy. So which came into being, I think, 2007 or around there, or probably earlier than that. And so, I mean, with that, it used to be every 5 years there's a development strategy for every 5 years, and it was so limiting in many ways. But to me, anyway, other people might have different opinions. But to me, I attributed the 2030 strategy, whereby we are now heading there. So with that, there are several pillars that kind of was mapped out, or it has been mapped out, including education. And so, whereas the system of education that I went through is still, it's changing now. I hear there is a new system that is being trialed, or at the moment. In fact, my understanding now is that there is a first year of exams for a new system in Kenya. So there is a new system that is being trialed, and this is the sixth year, and the students, as I'm speaking now, are writing their first exam in that new system. It has its own challenges like any new system, but I'm sure over time, the review, they're working, the reforms will happen. But in terms of why Kenya has gone improved, I think like Nepal, students are captivated, they're really eager to learn. And so in Kenya, there are different types of schools, just like here, public schools, private schools, religious schools, and so forth. And so parents, and this is, I guess, similar here, whether they are poor or otherwise, they would put whatever resources they have to have their children go to school and succeed. So they will do whatever it takes. Now, so in terms of Nepal, I think it's the same, that you'll find parents sending students from the rural areas, maybe into the big cities to look for a different and better education. And so the reason, the other reason why I think Kenyan education is improving a lot is the realization that education is part of alleviating the poverty level. So when I did my master's was in international education, looking at the education, development, and poverty. And I was trying to see, does it always mean education equals poverty eradication? Which is never, it's not. We cannot say when you're educated, you are not poor. But there is a link that an educated society is a society that is forward-looking, that is looking into the challenges that are happening, that are able to react to things in a more, I guess, in a dimension, a perspective that is critical, that is always evaluative, that is always thinking about the other. So in terms of Nepal, I think we probably, and I cannot claim to know a lot. I've spent time here, but I think a lot of the time we spend a lot on the book. But then I went to a class which was also a beautiful class, because the content that is being taught here is progressive. So, and I saw some text before when I first came here, and it was different. But looking at it now, it's you can see a lot of things. I was talking to my students as today, and saying we were talking about health and population and something else. And then we simply had to look at your posters in this school and see the progress that is being made in terms of equity, equality, understanding of different gender issues, even sexuality, religion. So I think, to me, it's heading in the right direction. What we probably, Nepal, can do is maybe slightly tone a bit this idea of teaching to the test a lot of the time, and focus more on developing the child, this person. Otherwise, I think it's heading in the right direction.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Kip. And is this channel is mainly meant for young students. So would you just like to give them some suggestions, young adolescent? Like, can you give them few suggestions on studies, related to studies?
I work with young people outside of school, so part of my life is also to engage with young people outside school. My research, mainly in Australia, is around migrants that are coming from or elsewhere to Australia, especially young migrants. And so some of the things I would say in terms of, and my latest work is around transitioning to higher education. So how young people can transition to higher tertiary education. So a few tips really. I don't have a lot to say other than to say, first of all, if you are in high school, it's about time you begin to think more broadly around yourself, around, come out of the text and textbook and classroom and ask yourself, who are you? Who am I as a young person? What do I want in life? How do I change the situation that I am in? Or what steps should I be able to take to make my life better, especially better than, say, our parents? you know. So there is always that urge to be better than, you know, the last generation. And so if you are studying, there are ways to study. I don't believe in studying 10 hours, many hours in a day, but strategic. Be strategic in the way you study. There are many study skills that are out there that you can, you know, check, read nowadays with the internet and other, you know, sources. It's better that if you are using Google or any other, sorry to be saying, you know, any other internet or social media, there is a lot there that can be confusing.
Yes.
So my encouragement to the young people is, and this is sad because whenever I teach, sometimes you think they know a lot about the use of social media for, you know, for change, but only to realize they go in to look for what other people have created, content that has been created by other people.
Other people, right?
My challenge is, where is your content?
Yes.
Can you share your content?
Oh, yeah.
So that, you know, and content that can be useful to others, not just rubbish. Because a lot of what we come through in social media or in internet, to me, is rubbish. I hear now there is what is called, you know, the many little short clips, video clips. I don't want to say the names of those things, but this is a good platform for young people. It's even business for young people nowadays. But only if you package yourself in a way that is understanding who you are, what your society expects from you, what your religion, if you are a religious person, or faith, but let me use the word faith, expect from you, so that you know the parameters, the paradigm in which you are operating. Let's not just be anything goes by. I don't believe in this one comes, you take, that one comes, you take, but be a good listener, but when it comes to acting, act appropriately. Study well, and there is always a bright future if you plan, if you are strategic in your planning, if you look for good strategies on for learning, if you are studying. But more importantly, decide quite early what you want to become. And for me, if you are giving your best, there's nothing called failure. If you are writing an exam and you didn't get a mark higher than, you know, expected, that doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean at that day you probably didn't do exams well. So examination sometimes captures you at that moment, not about you as a person. So if you were to do an exam and you don't do well, have a chance, have a next go, you know, try again. And then once you get what you are looking for, build on that. If you haven't decided what you want to become, it's not the end of yourself. There is time, people change. I teach, part of my teaching, I teach undergraduates who have finished high school and they are now transitioning to university. I also teach people who have been in other experience. They have had a lot of experience in other sectors and they want to become teachers, mature age entry. We also have people that are coming in at a later life mature age. So if you are focused, it's not too late. Start small and slowly build, develop yourself to a level where you feel comfortable. There is nothing wrong having finished, say, university and only to realize it's not your career choice. You can always change. Do not get frustrated. Nowadays, I worry more about the resilience of young people. They need to build more resilient among themselves, and for the community as well. We now see a lot of social misfits in the society because of the young people. They are quick to make wrong moves, especially with their lives. Yet, it's not the end of the world. If you make a mistake, there is room to change. There is room to, and there are now professional outlet services that can help young people to become who they want to become. So they shouldn't hold until it explodes in the wrong direction. Mistakes happen when you do not learn from them. To do a mistake once is okay. To repeat it over and over, it becomes out of hand. So the point is, know who you are, know what your community expects from you, and ask yourself, what do I want from the community? And more importantly, look out for peace. Be a peace building person. That's the only way we can make it in life.
So much. You've got a very long experience of training the teachers. So just would you like to give a few suggestions briefly to Nepalese teachers?
Maybe learn from Nepalese teachers. If there's anything I've done, I've also come to know here is they know the content.
Yes.
They are very good at the content. So there is no doubt about that. I think they are specialized in their content area, which is what every child wants. You know, you would expect a teacher who knows what he or she is talking about. In terms of the advice, really, is perhaps consider more of learning and teaching strategies. There are strategies out there that you can still balance even though you are expected to deliver the curriculum, the syllabus, the exams. I think teaching from the book every day is sometimes good, but sometimes you got to go out of your way to link the content to life experience, link the content to community, link the content to the world. And more importantly, if you taught, know the time you are teaching as well. I mean, mornings are sometimes good, but if you are teaching an afternoon lesson, are there other ways of teaching the same content rather than just asking the child to read the same thing? You know, ask the student to maybe develop an understanding. Use what you say in teaching and learning. Ask yourself, in literacy, we have what we call the 4 resources model. Now, the 4 resources model, for those that are not aware, is something whereby we ask ourselves, am I helping students to develop code breaking exercise? So code breaking is ability for the child to understand, to look at the content and be able to tell, you know, to break into small. They can look at the prints and realize what is the content about, and so forth. And then we move, not in that the order it is, and then we move normally to what we call a text user. So a text user looks at the meaning you know, what is the content saying, they are schematic in the way they connect things. And then we move to what's called a text participant, whereby you start looking at engaging with real life connection, prior learning, you connect the two. And then the last one is often what's called critical or transformative learning at a critical phase, whereby you ask yourself, why am I reading this text? If you are an English teacher or a maths teacher or whatever, the child needs to ask yourself, who wrote the text? Why am I reading Shakespeare? Why am I reading, you know, and ask yourself, oh, what benefit is that to me? So for a teacher then, whether you are teaching English, maths, whatever, you need to ask yourself at some point, what do I want from my subject area? Do I only want the child to pass, which is a good thing, but is that all? Is teaching really only about an A in exam? I think it's more wider than that. We need to come up with a holistic view of learning. And so 3 things for a Nepali teacher. Continue with the content. I think you guys are doing well in that. But invest more in the strategies. Diversify the teaching and learning strategies in classroom. And more importantly, engage with the profession. I think, I don't know how teachers are trained in Nepal, but I think it's important to join a profession beyond Nepali. There are resources out there, whether in Australia, Canada, elsewhere, whereby you can develop yourself to become this effective teacher. So let's aim for effective teaching and learning. I think that's the best way to go, and I've really liked the fact that here people are really enthusiastic about their learning. I've been in mathematics class in Nepal classroom, and I can see maths coming quickly and students getting it. But I only think we should also be willing to take back some time, relax, and ask yourself, why am I doing this lesson? Can I do it differently from yesterday? Lessons should not be the same from Monday to Saturday. I mean, to every day. Change so that student expect diversity. Diversify your way of teaching. Be magical. Elate them. Make them look wow. I always ask teachers and ask this question. Every time you go to class, what is the hook? What is it that the student wants to say, wow? What is it that the student wants you to come back next day? Because some students don't want to see you, which is not what we want. You want to say or to find something that will want your student to want you the next day. Oh, teacher Sai is here, quiet, because there is something new you are bringing. Not to say, oh, another boring day, So let's find a hook, something that captures the student's attention and sustain it to the end. More importantly, in teaching and learning, it is a cycle. Ask yourself, where are my students today? What can I do to take them to the next level? Where am I in the curriculum, in the syllabus? What can I do to take them to that level? How will I assess them? How can I move to the next topic? So that is not testing only, but if you ask yourself some of those questions, you might realize some of the content is just for discussion in class and nothing beyond that. Whereas some content requires more work. Whereas others requires going out of your way to find something new. So let's use what we call in literacy intertextual relationship. In other words, relating the content to something students already know. It will make it more effective, it will make them understand better if we go with that. Go with what we call higher order thinking. So if you are considering the Bloom's taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy says we build from the knowledge, we move until we synthesize at the end. So it's like a pyramid. You start with common things, you evaluate along the way, you remember stuff, but in the end, you synthesize to make something new. So my aim is every end of your unit, or topic, or chapter, ask yourself, what is new that I've taught today? Sometimes forget the exam and ask yourself, have I taught this student something new? Thank you.
All right. So finally, this is my last question. As you know, the policymakers, they play great role. So, and very recently we have had the election. So we are going to have a new government and probably the new policymakers. So would you like to give few suggestions to those policymakers as far as education is concerned? This is my last question.
No. To me, a good policy is one that is sustaining. That's why when we started this, I said, when you have a long-term policy, it's only a matter of cleaning it up, reforming, making changes, small changes as you go. Drastic changes is not the best some of the time. So if, I don't know about, and I'm not talking about Nepal politics here, but any government, a new government, really has to sit down and look at what is there already. I always believe that it's not everything, because it's a new government, it doesn't mean what was there before is rubbish. People need to sit down, whether it's a new minister, a new policy maker needs to evaluate, go through, do a study of what is already there, and then build from there. Yes, some things may need to be cleaned up, may need to be tightened a bit, but it doesn't mean we forget and start afresh. I'm always worried when policy makers come with their own agenda, forgetting the big agenda for the country. It is, we must look at move beyond politics, because education is about reforming the child. It's about communities. It's about the country. The love of the country should be above the politics, the stream, the small politics. Therefore, even education or any policy should be above politics. But it doesn't also mean there is a reason why people have chosen a particular government, why they are in government. So they must also, in a way, deliver that which they promised. Because if they won fairly, which I believe so, they must have they must have convinced people about their policies, their agenda, what some people call a manifesto. And therefore, a government that doesn't want to stay in power is one that does not want to deliver on their promises.
Yes.
So they have to deliver on their promises. And there's nothing wrong shifting the promise, but they must tell the people that this, when we were campaigning, we promised this, and this is what we intend to do. I think that is the best policy in politics, is if you promise something and people liked it and it was something that they thought it's going to reform a country, they should deliver on that. If they have to change, they have to tell the people why, and therefore seek the mandate of the people wherever, but also go with the people along. They shouldn't go and start their own office changes. They should involve the people. I think, as I said, a country like Nepal is changing. People are beginning to be conscious about what is happening. And so it can no longer be a top-down policy making. It has to be community grassroots, community-based. Collect views from people, let people discuss, consider those as part of the policy making. But more importantly, deliver on the promises that you were voted in, that people saw that they were good policies, and therefore they gave you that mandate to lead. And therefore, find a way to show the people that you meant it when you are doing the campaigns and having won now. It's time to sit down and to start and say, how am I going to meet the needs of the communities, regardless of whether they voted for you or not. I think it's always important, I don't know again here, but elsewhere in developed democracies, the moment elections are done, the next day, life continues. It's not about who voted what party. People have lived above that, above party politics. And so maybe that's the one lesson those of us who are from developing democracies to learn from, that whether somebody voted for you or not, once that chapter is finished of election, it's about thinking about the country, about each and every individual, rather than who voted or who didn't vote. So let's have a country that is forward-looking, that is above politics, and having the national interest for everyone. Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Kiprono, Langat, for your wonderful time. Despite your busyness, you gave me this wonderful time. So once again, I'd like to thank you.
Yeah.
So okay, yes. Final word you'd like to say something?
Now,
you experience in Nepal?
Yeah, it's been wonderful being here. We've been in an international school. I come here to share experience. It's part of an Australian government called the New Colombo Plan, whereby Australia is trying to ensure that we share the knowledge. So we come here, apart from coming to teach, we also come to learn.
All right.
And my experience being here, I've learned a lot, and I'll be using that to support my students. So thank you for your support, and we will meet in other forums. Thank you.
So like your experience in River International School, our school, it was wonderful, I'd say that.
Oh yes, Riviera has been a wonderful place for my students. I come here with students from who are teaching in primary K to 12. And this time we've been privileged to even teach from year 4 to college. So what Riviera has done for my student is something I will always be grateful for. My students have talked really positively about the school, about the students. We've received letters from your students, really beautiful content. The staff is supportive, the principal, I think wonderful guy who really have interest of student success here. And so for the teaching fraternity, the academia, the people that are teaching here, I think you are in the right place. So let's all build Riviera. I've seen the slogans, I think lead the nation. I think it's leading the nation.
Yes, leading the nation.
It is a place to lead the nation. I've read some of the statements the director said and the principal said, and I support them holistically. I think they have a good vision for the school, and the students are really demonstrating that. So let's maintain and let Riviera continue to lead the nation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Once again, for your wonderful time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Once again, I would like to request you to subscribe the channel and like and make a comment, please. And that will definitely help you to better the channel. Thank you. Namaste.